Well, this is going to be one of the most interesting Mr. GLOAT podcasts I've ever talked about in my day because before everyone gets to the comments through it, which I hope it's about boxing, not about me, I think the answer is this. A person online did say something about 3 weeks ago, before the end of March, and I'm not going to say his name because I don't want people to think he's racist. It's just his opinion of everything that's happening in the lower weight class of boxing for women. He said, quote, "Do Japanese girls deserve to be in boxing?" And he shows us some information and the stuff that I've talked about on my videos and other stuff I've already talked about, talking about how the autumn weight division suffered from Samiri Yamanaka failing to defeat Tina Rupert, and also had these vacant titles on the line because Tina retired and these belts came in the fall and mostly, and this was like a week before Samiri Yamanaka defeat Nao Ugawa last April the 7th, 2 weeks ago. So mostly it did make you wonder, and still, my answer to that is let's get into this Mr. Glow podcast because I want to get to this. And even though this episode might be offensive, but it's my opinion and it's not what I said, it's what someone online said, and he's been paying attention to this a little bit closely. And I don't want to say his name. I'm not going to say if he commented this on YouTube or on Twitch or on Omega or friggin' I don't know how many. There's a lot of websites out there. I'm just saying I'm not going to say who this person is. I like to keep his name secret for the heck of it because him talking about this before this whole situation does make you wonder. There's only one Japanese woman in boxing that's still the champion. And looking up on Wikipedia, it is Mizuki Hiruda. Now, of course, we should have added another boxer that was also in the championship format, and that was Sharetta Metcalf. Sharetta Metcalf actually pulled out a good victory and a rematch win against Miyo Yoshida in October of 2024. Which should have been an interesting win for Mio if she would have gotten a rematch. And if she did, maybe she would have fought for Trinurka Johnson in Madison Square Garden that day on July the 11th last year ago against Johnson. Would she have won? It would have been interesting because it was 3 months after Yamanaka lost against Tina Rupert. So it is going to be an interesting episode to think of because if there's reasons why these Japanese girls have not been on top, I have that answer. But first of all, guys, before we get to this Mr. Glow podcast, it's time to get down to business. This is going to be like a 30 to 40-minute episode. I'm going by this one quickly because this one's a doozy. But before we get to that, guys, here's some information I would like to talk about. So, guys, for the professional of super middleweight boxing, we're still having some new talent fighters in the boxing world right now. A Denmark fighter of Jacob Bank already defeated William Skull in January the 31st in his country by a round 12 KO last round win to retain his global super middleweight WBO. He's trying to fight against some other person to go for 19-0. Does he have what it takes? Well, he's a 25-year-old kid. You even have Hamza Shiraz. He's trying to fight for gold as well for the WBO vacant belt against Alan Bejic, which is going to happen next month, also in Giza. So it is going to be funny to think of. And like I said, Jaime Munguia, he's taking on Resendez, also on the Oscar De La Hoya. We've already talked about this, but again, there are some interesting talent fighters here that I do question as paper champions, but do they deserve a shot? Heck, yeah, they do. But what about Canelo Alvarez? Well, he was former champion. He is a mandatory, after all. I do have to give him saying he is a mandatory fighter. But again, I don't think there's going to be a lot of problems for him if he can even recover. Like, he's already done it for 20 years in boxing, so why not? Just why not? Also, guys, as of BoxRec, it does say for Terrence Crawford, even though by pound for pound, on BoxRec, pound for People's pound for pound states that he's number 6. But the super middleweight division has already called him inactive, which he hasn't fought since September, which has been October, November, December, January, February, 7 months. So pretty much 7 months. So technically, with all that being said, I can't say much about that, but yeah, 7 months. But my point is, guys, and just let you guys know, I am going to talk about the atomweight division as well, which will put in interesting things of paper champions because there's a lot. Anyway, guys, what's also interesting about this is that with all this being said, we already got interesting competition here. From Tenshin Nasukawa defeating Juan Francisco to get a good win victory back after his loss against Takuma Inoue. Again, Conor Benn, great win for him. Justice Huni, great win to come back. Ben Whittaker, just great wins after all. Yeah, I gotta say, it's pretty interesting. And also, guys, I don't know if I said this before, but Dmitry Bivol is going to defend his titles on May the 30th in Russia, so that's going to be interesting to come back to Russia. And also, guys, as for the heavyweight division, before we get to end this topic, just give me a couple more minutes to talk about the other fights of the topic. We do have, again, another fight. Like I said before, get ready for April the 25th, where we have Lawrence Okali fighting against an Olympic gold medalist of Tony Yoka. It might be an easy win for him, considering it's fighting in France. So good luck with Yoka if he has what it takes. And again, we do have opportunities for other interesting fighters in the division here because, again, with all this being said and with all of the talent here, I don't think there's going to be a lot of a waste of time for some of these fighters in boxing. Like, for instance, like Kevin Lorana, ever since he lost against Okali last year, he's now fighting against Riyad Murray, who was somewhat of a contender at the time, and he still is, even though at 33 years old, from Belgium. I don't know what to say about him. But again, with other fighters in boxing, I really want to say it's going to be interesting when we talk about Jarrell Miller taking on a Cuban fighter of Lanier Perot. Live on DAZN for Eddie Hearn Matchroom, also on the 25th. Like, man, there's so much interesting talent here. I think people, like, guys, I would ask people to just watch boxing, watch sports, and just ignore the internet media of live live YouTube against content creators, because this is entertaining, exciting, even if you're not into it. Like, guys, if I ever have to make videos about perfume and such and what ladies do like, I would. But again, I don't do perfume. Should. Anyway, guys, we do have other fighters here like Teramona Wana taking on another journeyman fighter also on the 29th. It's going to be interesting to see him there, while we have many more interesting competitors still trying to get them back in competition. We're a few days away from another fight in Long Beach where we have Alexander Flores taking on a 15-0 fighter named Andrei Novisky from Ukrainian, who's ranked number 70. That will be happening on the Night of Champions number 11 by a promoter named David Mitri of the DMG Boxing and Promotions. Interesting. Coming from California. And I'm interested to find out more about this promoter if time comes his way. And finally, guys, sadly, ladies and gentlemen, we have a South Korean boxer that is out of the rankings. Jun Hyun Kim from South Korea is out of the boxing rankings because he hasn't fought in over a year now. And he was last ranked in the number 70s for some reason. And it is funny to just look at this and just say to yourself, like, what's with the talent? Is there any talented boxers in the Eastern Asian world? There could be. And have they ever won any titles? Well, we do have, again, the Taiwan fighter who actually fought for the WBF World Boxing Foundation against an Italian fighter that was a faker named Alicio Bisutti in October. And that old guy and his 48-year-old got beat up by a 20-year-old Taiwan kid in 48 seconds of the first round. So this guy's 95 in BoxRec, and that might be the first world title in the heavyweight division for an Eastern Asian boxer to win. So I don't think there's a lot of problems with that. I don't think so. Okay, so without that being said, guys, it's going to be time to get down to the autumn weight, ladies and gentlemen. Understand this. When it comes to the autumn weight division, this one is going to be a doozy. So, guys, the competition settles as this. The autumn weight division has already been on the hold to find new champions. Now, guys, all of these boxers right now are, in my opinion, paper champions. They're just paper champions. And paper champions is another word, as a title is manufactured, meaning that they never won it from the fighter that is currently the champion, because that fighter might have retired or went up another weight class. That's what Tina Rupert-Chet did. So the WBA champion in the autumn weight is a woman named Isabel Rivero from Spain, Camila Zamorano, an 18-year-old kid from Mexico, is the WBC, Samira Yamanaka, a IBF champion for the second time, and Gabriela Timar, WBO champion. We have another belt known as the IBA, or we call it the WIBA belt, which is the Women's International Boxing Association, which is not a major anymore, but it was at the time. And that belt is won by another Mexican woman named Aznidi Rodriguez Olmos. So technically, with all this being said, this is what we have to see. So unfortunately, guys, yesterday, as I'm recording this, Iri Matsuda was fighting against Olmos for that belt in Mexico. She lost. Olmos has been champion since, for the last year right now, since September last year. She defended the belt. She defeated against Mika Iwakawa by getting dominated in 10 rounds. She fought another fighter in December, and another Japanese woman went to her backyard in Mexico, and that was Iri, yesterday ago. And at this moment, she lost as well. And it's such an abysmal, it's so abysmal to just see these Japanese girls. Like, guys, these Japanese women have guts. And a lot of these women in boxing, they have balls. And Mika Iwakawa, at 42 years old, boxing for 15 years, this woman, and even though Miwakawa has been the IBF Autumnweight Championship since 2022, and she lost it in January against Yamanaka, and she was also a WBO champion back in 2018 and lost it against Nane Suzuki in 2022. So she's had her time. She had her fights lost in her early career. So seeing her fight in 2025 is ridiculous. She comes back a full year, wins a fight. She loses the WBC interim Autumnweight Championship against Camila Zamorano. So in the month of June, Tina Rupert-Chet is still champion 2 months ago. So she hasn't vacated her titles yet. So this was for the vacant belt, for the interim belt. And all 10 rounds. Guess what? That fight happened in Mexico. Crazy. But guess what happened? 4 months later, Zamorano defends that title in October against Sana Hazuki, another Japanese fighter. 10 rounds, all decision. And even though Sana had a 13-11-1 record and Mika had a 13-7-1 record at the time in those fights, but again, they both traveled to Mexico to fight for the title. And last February, Zamorano already fought against an Argentinian fighter that's, again, for some reason, it says on BoxRec that one judge had it a wide 190, the other 98-92, and one 97-93, proving that Argentinian women are better than Japanese women. Sana couldn't score one single round. They all had 190 for their Mexican friend, who was 17 years old at the time when winning the belts, and even having Mika having one judge give her 98-92, and the others were all 190. So, and again, in September, 3 months later, again, like I said before, Mika fought against Olmos and got dominated, 190 by all judges, and lost against Sana Hazuki in April the 5th by a close unanimous decision, and which was like 2 weeks ago. So you can tell what's going on here, because guess what happened? In December the 26th, Gabrielle Timmer fights for the WBO interim belt. A Romanian woman living in Switzerland takes on Marina Loreto and for the WBO belt. Loreto is Japanese, 8-0-2, undefeated, taking on this 39-year-old woman, having no chance. And for some reason, it just had to happen. Like Gabrielle, and again, this fight took place in Switzerland. And the judges' scores one had it 95 even, the others were 97, 93, 98, 92. Those two favored it for Gabriella. So, yeah, again, a 39-year-old woman taking on a 32-year-old Japanese woman. And no, come on. I'm not buying that. That's ridiculous. Oh, and by the way, the WBA belt was fought by two Spanish women from Spain. Silvia Torres and Isabel Rivera were both in Spain. They fought for the belt in November the 21st, a month ago, before the WBO vacant belt in Switzerland. So that didn't matter. And of course, like the IBF belt on April the 7th, Samiri took on Nao Ugawa, had a split decision on that victory. But again, and both happened in Japan. But again, I can't say it was a success. But because seeing Samiri barely win that fight, depending, I can't find footage of that fight, is ridiculous. So I can understand why someone online is saying that, do Japanese girls deserve to be champions? Do they even deserve to have undisputed title fights? Or are they just a waste of time? Guys, it's not that possible for me to say that, yeah, just because that you have controversies around the world, like Japan has been insufferable problems with local comedian of the economy. There's not a lot of birth rates for people giving birth to children at that country. Japanese girls have been mostly in molestation in Japanese trains for chikan. And there have been a lot of AV porn actresses, of AV actresses, and other online stuff that's happening out there. As we know, Japanese girls are into so much stuff as businesswomen, going to bars, drinking, hitting the ground out in the streets, feeling like they're homeless. So you can tell that it's a horrible environment for most of these people, even when you're out in the streets in dark. Now, with all that being said, you got to put it in that perspective. But again, guys, if you had to say that any of these people, because just like Tina Ruperchet, she defeated Iri Matsuda and Samiri Yamanaka. And both those girls put on a good performance in Germany against Tina. And again, it's hard for me to say because Tina Rupert got dominated by Sinicia Estrada back in 2023 and in America. Yes, it was in America, and what else can you say by that? She got dominated, and she went to the autumn weight, took on Fabiana Batik, who was a top contender, but now is a bum fighter right now, and barely won that fight. Barely won Iri Matsuda and barely won Samiri Yamanaka, and only thing that got her there were judges' incompetence for Germany. But again, guys, I can't say that Japanese people gave the credit to their country for giving their fighters a chance to win the title. Like, heck, even in 2025, just several months ago during the end of the year, they held a Japanese heavyweight tournament with 7 Japanese men and 1 Chinese guy. And at the end of the day, the Chinese fighter won it all. And right now, he is ranked over the 100 spot. So he's in a great place, which makes it that ridiculous to talk about. It's not funny. And again, guys, let's not forget about Kosei Tanaka. Because Kosei Tanaka, before he retired from boxing in 2024 due to his horrible injuries and such, who is also the 23rd boxer after February 2024, he won the WBO super flyweight title. He fought against Familia Kafu in October in Tokyo. And that fight went split decision, and Kafu defeated Kosei Tanaka in Tanaka's country of Japan. And the judges that were there were Phil Austin, who was born in Singapore but living in Australia, Jesse Riaz, he was from America, and Waleska Rodin, a female from New York. And they had 114 and 113. 2 of them favored it for a split decision against Kafu. So I really can't say that, even though Japan has already been trying to make... Sorry. So I really can't say that that's something they're trying to make fair for Japan, even though if they didn't have any of their judges there, which would have been interesting for the time being. But my point is, guys, it's all about looking for that opportunity as best as you can. But even though these Japanese girls have been fighting out of their country, which is not a terrible thing, depending that they're going back home empty-handed, and that's what all this is happening. Would they have had a chance to fight in their country against these people if the Mexicans went to their country and see how they would have performed? Would the outcome be different? That would have been almost a lot hilarious, just like when Hyunmi Choi lost against a Canadian woman in April of 2024, 2 years ago, by split decision. And those people were, well, let's not get to the judging of that, but you can already tell there were some questionable stuff there. But in all hindsight, guys, I think what makes this one a lot interesting for me to talk about is how anyone else would have fought in their country as well. Because Kenshiro Taraji already lost against Ricardo Sandoval in July, and mostly 2 of those judges were Polish, and the 3rd judge was from the United Kingdom. So, and that fight took place in Yokohama, Japan. So, depending on who you would say about split decision victories on that, again, it is funny for me to point that out, because at the end of the day, I really don't want to say that it's all because of this, that judging is controversy, but it is. Like, for instance, Tina Rupert became undisputed atomweight champion with 1 Belgian woman and 2 German females. The Belgian had it even 95. 1 German woman had it 99 to 91, and the other judge had it 96 to 95. giving one of the 10 rounds a 10-10 score, making it 6 of those rounds were 10 and 5 of them were 10 for the Japanese woman and the German woman in Germany. So I really, really do believe that if a Japanese woman has an opportunity to get to their country, box for the champion, some things could go right. But then again, I wouldn't put out anything worthwhile. But yet again, guys, I really can't say that the same thing for when Brian Norman Jr., who was former WBO welterweight championship, when he lost against Devin Haney and Jin Sasaki last June, 5 months before Devin Haney fought Brian Norman Jr. in November, would have thought, man, I wish I had the same skills as the American fighter. Yeah, guess what? Well, even when Jin Sasaki lost against Brian Norman in June, the thing was, even though one judge was Canadian, one was American, female, the other was Japanese, named Tetsuya Lida. And that judge gave it 39-35 after 4 rounds, giving it to Brian Norman. Which was, again, like, would he have cheated to give his fighter a chance if he was staying in the fight? Well, to be honest, I really can't answer that because I don't want to be in a controversial manner there. But again, you get the point. My point is, these things will come to place depending on who the person is judging the fight. Not every person wants to see their favorite fighter lose. And again, we don't want to see any controversy unless if you're being paid or even bribing the judges and telling them to, hey, let that fighter win. It's ridiculous, to say the least, for everything here, because this is mostly a huge problem in the world of professional boxing. And I'm not talking about any other country like Japan or Germany or even Mexico, because those are the 3 countries I'm talking about. And even though Switzerland, again, I don't know much about that country, but again, there's a lot of countries. America, the UK has done it all. What does it have to do with Japanese women? Nothing. Like, Japanese women and other females from other countries have their own boxing styles just like us men. So I can't go out here and say that this country doesn't deserve to be in boxing. One of these days, you'll find that boxer, and that person will have the opportunity if God wants them to be undisputed. And we just have to wait for that opportunity to happen. So I really can't go out here and say for certain about any of these people if they deserve a title shot or not. Because it's just too much for me to even spill the grapes and to give these people an opportunity and just believe if they have what it takes. But again, with all that being said, I will say this though, and even though we're almost at 30 minutes and I'm already done talking right now about this whole thing, so with all this being said, there was one boxer that I do think of, understanding what it would be like to be in a situation if you're boxing for a world champion. And mostly, with all that being said, it's not like it's the end of the world, because there was one fighter at the time that I was surprised about. Because like I said before, his name was Kazuto Ioka. He did had prime in himself. He was a WBO super flyweight champion back in the day. And he also had IBF super flyweight title fight he had and other fights In 2023, he won against. And when he lost against Fernando Daniel Martinez in July by 12 rounds of decision, and even though it happened in Japan, so I really can't say much about it. And again, all the judges were from other countries, so I really can't argue about that. And that's the same thing when he had actually had a rematch with him. I think he had a rematch with, yeah, he had a rematch with him back in May of 2025. And again, like, I really can't say much about them because all of the judges and a couple of them were American. So again, I can't say that that's part of the whole thing here, because it makes you wonder how much strict that they're going to their country to put out new judges just to make sure they don't make boxing controversy in Japan. So what am I trying to say? Should these people just stop giving their countries an opportunity to win championships by cheating, by hiring their countrymen to judge the fight, just like when Tina Rupert and Samiri Yamanaka fight? And I don't want to go down there and say that's the reason. I don't want to say that, because not all countries have done that. Because some have changed their way. And it's not all that bad. It's not like Iri Matsuda, when she lost against Rupert, one judge was from Italy while the other was from Germany, and the last one was from Poland, living in the UK but representing Poland. And for some reason, why they had to hire 3 women, 2 of them were German and Belgian for one, who knows? But it's not like the time when Sven Otka, and guys, I'm already done talking about the Japanese women thing. I'm done with that. I will say this though, guys. When I talk about Sven Otka, people believe that Sven Otka was getting 3 wins because of all German people were judging their fights. And the problem is, guys, when you talk about the Robin Reed fight, they already had one American judge and a Switzerland judge and an Italian judge in that fight, judging the fight with Robin Reed and Sven Otka. And Roger Tillerman, the referee, was a Belgian. So again, there were no controversies of stuff in Germany. Now, again, I don't know if Roger Tillman was German. It says that he lived in Belgium as a resident. And he did retire from boxing in 2005 in December, a couple years later. So, as a referee, as for a judge, he retired in 2012. And ever since then, he passed away that same year. So I really can't say that Sven Otka was getting lucky on the cards, but there were no German people judging or reffing the fight with Sven Otka and Robin Reed. Again, the judges, they just had their own opinion. Like Levi Martinez from America and Gildo Mancini, the Italian judge, they already had their scores judged as 115 to 113 for Otka winning the fight. Yes, the other judge from Switzerland had a wide 117 to 112, but for reasons of that, was it the worst scorecard they ever seen? Not really. So I'm not saying that Germany are putting their countrymen to judge these fights, because all countries, they hire all these people, they pay them money, or else they put these things happening. Yes, would Robin Reed deserve to score that knockout against Sven Otka in the 6th round? Heck yeah, he should have. So at the end of the day, that would just be so bad for me if I had to blame all these countries for doing this to these Japanese women and everyone destroying it. Because again, all these countrymen and other people do go to countries to judge these fights just to make things fair, so their countrymen won't do that. Now, has that happened in women's boxing for these Japanese women? Has that happened? Well, to be honest, I would have to go back and see. So Camila Zamorano had 3 judges in the Mika Iwakawa fight. Now, give me a second so I can actually translate their names, but I'm not going to say them right, so I might say them by their first name or their last name. Keep that in mind. So the first judge is a guy named Carlos Lopez. He has 2 other names, but I'm not going to say it. And again, he is from Mexico. Hector Verdugo is Mexican. And the other judge is Gilbert Osos Verdugo, who is Mexican. So, of course, Mika Iwakawa was finished. And, of course, guess what? Verdugo also was the judge for that fight against when Zamorano defended it against winning the WBC title from Sana Hazuki. So great. And he had it 190 as well in those 2 fights. And Hector Hernandez and Francisco, both of those 2 judges were Mexican. I don't know who the commissioners were, but it stated that the commissioners for these fights in June were the Commission de Box CD Hermosillo. And the one in October is known as Commission de Box Estado de Sonora. And the promoters were Fernando Beltran and Rafael Soto Gil in the October. So that right there is questionable. As for the Isabel fight and those other things, I can't find judges for the fight except Lewis Padden was the referee of that show, pretty much defending those titles. So, and also Gabriela Timar winning as a 39-year-old woman. The judges in Switzerland was an Austrian man named Savannah Grafe. The other one was named Valerio from Italy. And the other was Gergo from Hungary. So my point is, so guys, here's my point. Should it be fair if we just send one Japanese judge to their country and have the right to judge fairly? And get rid of one Mexican fighter, one Mexican judge, and have some other non-country judge the fight? Because this right here is ridiculous. And if they say it's fair, then that person won. But at the end of the day, I just think that's what we should do. We have to even things up, or else things like this will come to a tragic end. And people don't want to see their Japanese fighters be involved with this type of charades. And in all honesty, guys, just like the Ugawa versus Yamanaka fight 2 weeks ago, of course, all of these judges in that fight were Japanese. So, and if I have anything to say about their judging, it is interesting. Interesting in a way that I wouldn't say it's bad, but the way these people score in title fights is interesting. I don't want to say terrible or bad. Like, it's not like how last December when Masamichi Yabuki defeated Felix Alvarado in a knockout in round 12, as said before, and Koji was the judge that day, and all other judges had it similar, like Daniel Sandoval and Alex Levin. They were non-Japanese people, but they had a Japanese judge there, and Koji did it, and all judges had it favored even before the 12th round. So that was fair, and it was somewhat of a fair deal there. You gotta give him credit. It's not like how Koji even reffed on the fight or judged the fight with the Tenshin Nasukawa and Takuma Inoue fight last November. So yeah, I see a lot of interesting information here on BoxRec as I'm looking this up, and I'm still scrolling down his name right now and his judging if there's anything interesting here. I'm just looking for his title fights, if he has done any, and who were the fighters. Was it a Japanese fighter taking on a random foreigner person? And wow. Huh. Interesting. Is that Japanese? No, he's not. Okay, so that one doesn't. No, that one doesn't count. Um. Ooh, and he was also involved in the judging for Junto Nakatani and Ryosuke. That was interesting. So yeah, technically, I think it depends on what commissioners and people are working for these judges, and I do believe that it's not just that, but I do want to question that there is moments in boxing that, as I'm still trying to look up the information right now, it is interesting. It is interesting to see what's going on here in the world of boxing, but I will say though, if I had to say what country is playing fair, even though not every country is going to be perfect, not every country is perfect, and it never will be. But if I had to say the country most respected, in my opinion, in Japan, would have to be Japan, if that's the only country in the planet Earth. But if I had to say the only country that's being respected as having judging for the best people for judging fights around the world in boxing, I would have to say Japan. And when it comes to traveling around the world, I will have to give credit to the Japanese women. Guys, you have to respect these Japanese girls. Like, they might be short, they might be so small they can hide under potato peels, but you gotta give them credit. They went to these countries, they went to Mexico, they went to Switzerland, they go to America. Some of them are living in America right now, trying to get opportunities. So you gotta give them credit for doing what they're trying to do, and I gotta give them credit for that. And I'm sure one of these days we will have an undisputed championship in women's boxing. They've come close before, and I think that opportunity will come again. Yes, we might not have a Japanese driver that's ever won an F1 race in the history of Formula One or ever finished second place, only third place, and that's about it. And even though one of the Japanese drivers is gone from F1 and no one gave him a damn opportunity to do nothing but slack off for over 4 to 5 seasons in his 4-year career in high school. So, yeah, it does stink. So my final thoughts about all this is this. I think we do have to try to take things to another notch as best as we could. I think there is some interesting opportunities here, and I do believe something interesting will happen. And while we're about to end this episode in just a moment, I am going to try to look up women's IBF and see if there's anything interesting here. Looking up the atom weight division, the women's IBF has 0 title bouts. Okay, so that's it. What about the International Women's Boxing Federation? The IWBF has, looking up on atom weight again, this one has 0 title fights. Well, like I said before, guys, next time we're going to do, well, maybe in the month of May or June, we are going to do the road to the undisputed Atomweight Championship, talk about each title as best as we could, and understand the story of Japanese boxing, and do Japanese women still have an opportunity? Do they have what it takes? Is there anything left for them? And what about the competition in other countries? Is there anything we have to say? Well, look at this. Like Sana Hazuki's number 8, Shiori Yotsumoto, 3-0, 19-year-old young kid who's number 7, Ugawa 6, Honoka Kakano, I have heard of before, is number 5, Yamanaka's 4, Rodriguez is number 3, but she's going to go up number 2 as Iri Matsuda was number 2, but not anymore. Zamorano, the 18-year-old kid, is number 1. The others, number 9 and number 10, is Rivero and Timar. Forget about them. There's a lot of Japanese women here that are in the top 20 ranks, which is crazy. And they want to get their opportunity right now. That's all I have to say. This is going to be an interesting thing to talk about. I think the autumn weight division is going to be one interesting episode I'm going to be interested in talking about. This one's going to be a doozy. So thank you for watching. Oh, look at this. Interesting. We have bikinis on Revolve. I don't mind if I look these up. Well, anyway, guys, thank you for watching. This is going to be great. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. And all I can say is, Japanese girls, keep fighting. Don't give up.